Welcome to the Whole Athlete Podcast, where we focus on discussing topics to help you become a fat burner, optimize health, and improve performance in life and sports. Transform the whole you from the inside out with the holistic method. Let's dive in. Here's your host, Debbie Potts.
Hey everyone, it's Debbie Potts, and I'm doing a new podcast on an old topic. Today's show is with Beth Dow to talk about heart rate variability. We've talked about this measurement years ago on Fit, Fat, Fast and on the Whole Athlete podcast. For a couple of years we haven't talked about it, but this is a subject I like to return to because one of my main missions of this podcast and my program, the Holistic Method Coaching Program, is to coach the whole athlete from the inside out for performance and longevity. Part of that is measuring and tracking your stress you're putting on your body, your resiliency, your ability to bounce back after a hard training session or a stressful day, just living life. It doesn't have to be just with your workout sessions, but just life is busy. Life gets stressful. Family's stressful. Work's stressful. So testing your heart rate variability, measuring your sympathetic nervous system versus your parasympathetic nervous system is really an essential part of training the whole you. And this is how I coach my own athletes using Training Peaks. Ideally, we all are able to get the Oura Ring and some other devices you can measure your heart rate variability and have it all, this data, biohacking information upload into Training Peaks so it can keep it all in one spot so it's easier. I hate having to go to 10 different locations on my phone apps, and tracking data is just too overwhelming. So I keep it simple, one-stop shop, get it done, and just get this great information. So testing heart rate variability, I think, is really essential. And Beth Dow is a co-founder of SweetWater Health, a pioneer in the use of heart rate variability as a platform for remote monitoring and diagnostics. She has spent her career in the high-tech world designing and producing state-of-the-art networking technology and building high-tech companies. Beth has entered the networking industry at its inception and has been in the forefront of networking technology development. And she is the founder and has grown several different technology companies, including SweetWater Health with my friend Rhonda Collier back in 2011. This is a mobile health software technology company with a platform that measures your HRV, a vital sign that reveals the individual's state of health for a number of different conditions and applications, and facilitates continuous monitoring of stress levels via their patented algorithm. And she is also responsible for engineering the development of this project, the operations, finance, and corporate strategy. She graduated with a bachelor's degree in computer sciences at Florida Atlantic University. So I'm excited to talk to Beth Dow today and share our thoughts of how HRV has been used since we started talking about it back in 2011 and how it's grown and the industry has grown as itself, as well as how athletes are using this information to improve their performance and their longevity. I am a big believer in it, and I think just the process of lying down for 5 minutes in the morning, if we can do that first thing and wake up and check our HRV before we start the day, is a great way to track our nervous system as well as I said, our performance, maybe altering our workouts for that day because we are stressed out and need to take a rest day or an active recovery, nice fresh air walk, and maybe move that high intensity interval tempo bike training session to another day. So let's hear what Beth has to say in the world of technology and heart rate variability.
Thank you for coming on today and sharing this great information in kind of the biohacking world.
Well, thank you, Debbie. I'm really happy to be here.
Well, we've had Rhonda over the years, and you work with Rhonda Collier, and you are also filled with amazing background, and we went over your bio, but just what makes you so interested in the science of HRV?
Well, about 9 years ago, I ran into Rhonda, and Rhonda was a friend of mine. And I ran into her, and she had just gotten her second degree, which was a master's in holistic psychology. So Rhonda is an electrical engineer, and I'm a software engineer. And she told me that she was studying heart rate variability, and she had an idea for an incredible product. And with the advent of the mobile phone, suddenly we had the power in our pocket, where before, if you were going to measure HRV, it would take a room full of just, static equipment. It would cost about $25,000. So now we had the power in our pocket. And that's when we decided to create this company that would measure your HRV in real time. And we figured that our target market would be women from the ages of 25 to 50 that were interested in their health, interested in their stress levels and their real-time stress levels. And so we created our product. And one of the first things that happened were the athletes embraced us, especially the European athletes, because they were very familiar with heart rate variability and its implication with training and overtraining. So then we took our product, our general product, and modified it to be athletic also. So you can be an athlete and use our product. You can be a biohacker. You could be someone just interested in improving your health. And so it's a really good general purpose product. And we've been working together ever since. And I'm the chief technical officer and the one responsible for the app that you're seeing and for all the code.
So let's review what is HRV, as some people that may not be real full understanding of what it is and what the term, how much it really, what you can do with this too, this HRV word and the information we get from it.
So I'm sharing my screen right now. Can you see that?
Yep.
Okay. So your heartbeat varies from beat to beat. And this naturally occurring irregularity is your heart rate variability. And this is very important as a fundamental to get down about heart rate variability, because people believe if their average heart rate is 60 beats per second, then that's going to be a beat once every second. But that's not true. And if it was, you would be very ill. What actually occurs is there's variation between each beats, as illustrated here. So it could be 0.93 seconds, 0.98, 1.2 seconds, 1.3. And it's the difference, the time difference between the beats are the values that we use for our HRV calculation. And your heart rate variability then is a window into your autonomic nervous system. And the things that will affect your autonomic nervous system is everything from your environment, your thoughts, your breathing, your blood pressure, your nervous system. There's thousands of signals occurring in your autonomic nervous system at all times. And this is what will make the changes in your heart rate and consequently make the variability changes. People will believe that, if your heart is very rhythmic, that's good. That means it's healthy. But in fact, the variation counterintuitively, and the more variation, the healthier you are. And I use the analogy like a nice fresh rubber band where you can stretch it, and when you let it go, it snaps right back into place. That's a nice, healthy heart. And then there's an old stale rubber band that you pull, and it doesn't quite go back. So it's the responsiveness we're looking at. And so that variability is a factor of the responsiveness of your heart.
And I think what I feel like I talk about every episode is the importance to know if we had too much stress today from just life stress, from a busy day, or for athletes, how to figure out their workout for that day, if they should switch their schedule around because their HRV numbers then in the tank because they did too much the day before, or maybe because they had a really stressful event that day. So let's talk about how this information, how we use it, and how we can apply it to our life plan or goals for that day.
Okay, so I have another slide here, which is really something we should talk about before we talk about how we apply it, because the autonomic nervous system consists of two branches, the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. And these two branches are very similar to a gas pedal and a brake pedal. They're continually trying to balance each other and try to, remain in a state of balance. So this is what the autonomic nervous system, when we measure it, we can determine the amount of sympathetic tone you have and parasympathetic tone, otherwise known as vagal tone. You'll hear vagal tone. So the sympathetic nervous system is your fight or flight nervous system. The parasympathetic is what we call your rest and digest. So it's the balance between these two that we look at to see what state you're in. And preferably you want to do it first thing in the morning before you get up. You can do it in bed or you can wake up. I get coffee and I sit down at my desk every day and I perform a measurement. And you just want to do it at the same time in the same position each day to be able to compare.
Wouldn't coffee change the numbers versus being more rested and without caffeine?
Yeah, but if you do it the same way every day, then what you're looking for is a difference. So everyone's HRV is like a fingerprint. Everyone is different. So you can never really compare yourself to somebody else. You can only compare yourself to your HRV and your previous day. So if I do all the same things, I wake up, I use the bathroom, I get coffee, I come back, I sit down. I do that every single day at the same time, preferably before, all hell breaks loose. That's what you want. You want it before anything starts happening in your day.
And we talk a lot about sympathetic dominance and how we're usually out of balance. So talk a little bit about what that means, how we're saying we should be able to go back and forth and have, snap that band and return back. So how does sympathetic dominance play into this?
Well, with the HRV values, that list of time differences between each heartbeat, there are several different algorithms we can apply to it. And the first algorithm is what we call in the time domain, which is a standard statistical measurement. And you'll hear people refer to my RMSSD or my SDNN. Then there's a different domain called a frequency domain. And this is where we extract the different frequencies of your HRV values. And we understand that, and I can show you another slide that might make it a little easier, in a certain spot in the frequency zone is your sympathetic nervous system, and at a different range of frequencies is your parasympathetic. And so in the frequency domain, this is where we look at the balance between the LF and the HF. So when people say, oh, I'm sympathetic dominant, what that means is their LF is much greater than their HF, the ratio between the two. Now, this is very fluid and will change throughout the day with your circadian rhythms, with what you're thinking, with what you're doing, with what you're eating, even your level of exercise. So that's why a first thing in the morning session will give you the ability to see how well you've recovered after sleep.
So that's the LF and HF. So I'm kind of jumping ahead because that's just sympathetic dominance made me think of, looking at the nervous system, sympathetic dominance. So let's kind of go into heart rate variability testing on the app. And you talk just about LF and HF, because I think not just testing your HRV when I'm coaching clients to use this information, I want to know the balance of the LF and HF. So if we can look at the slides, if you go to the Whole Athlete Podcast YouTube channel, you'll be able to see the slide version, because I think the visual aid here really helps. So why don't you kind of go over this slide? I think it's good information.
Okay, so this slide shows the LF, which is in this frequency range, and the high frequency range. And what we're looking at here, this isn't a time series like you would see with something else, like your RMSSD is a time series. We're actually looking at the power or the area under the curve. That's where we determine the power of both your LF and your HF at these different frequencies. So it's the ratio between the power of the LF and the power of the HF that shows the balance. So if you had a very, very high LF, then you would be considered sympathetic dominant. We usually look for a ratio, a 1-to-1 ratio. Sometimes we'll see athletes at 5-to-1 or 10-to-1. And personally, I don't get too concerned until I see a ratio that's 10-to-1 or greater than that, because men have a tendency to be more sympathetic dominant anyway. And the most important thing, I think, is the actual power numbers. I would much rather see higher LF and HF and both have very high power levels than both be low and balanced.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, a good example, I was just looking at your slides. If you pop backwards to that slide number 6 with the nervous system, is a good visual aid to show people what happens in the parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system and what the vagal tone is. I'm jumping all over, but I think I wanted to start with what HRV is and what sympathetic dominance is, because I hear that and we talk about it all the time, just our chronic stress, how it impacts our health. But could we go back into this definition of the vagal tone and what happens when we're in parasympathetic, the rest and digest, and what happens in the sympathetic nervous system?
So
fight or flight.
The vagus nerve is the 10th of 12 paired cranial nerves. And what it controls is the dilation of your eyes. So when you're sympathetic, your pupils dilate, because sympathetic is like, there's the tiger, right? Mm-hmm. So you want to be able to see as much as you can, versus parasympathetic, they're going to contract. In the parasympathetic mode, it stimulates the flow of saliva. In sympathetic, it inhibits it. So when you get scared, your mouth gets dry. Parasympathetic slows the heartbeat. Sympathetic accelerates it. The bronchi, when you're in parasympathetic mode, it constricts the bronchi. When you're in sympathetic mode, it dilates the bronchi. If you know of anybody who has asthma that uses an inhaler, the inhaler is it's a stimulant, right? And it's like a cortisol, and it opens up the bronchi and allows them to be able to breathe easier. And same thing with the stomach. Parasympathetic mode allows you to digest your food. Sympathetic mode, your body doesn't want to digest food. They want all that blood to your limbs and, your other extremities so you can run fast. So parasympathetic stimulates the release of bile. Parasympathetic contracts the bladder. The bladder expands, and sympathetic inhibits bladder contraction. So
I just think this is of these little diagrams, this image, if you look on the video version of this podcast, is so important, because I'm always teaching people, the balance HRV and have the balance of the two, parasympathetic, and be able to switch back and forth. But also when we get into talking about nutrition, digestion, nutrient absorption, and gut health, the parasympathetic nervous system, you can see, is really essential to be in when we're eating, so we have proper digestion. So is important to have that variance to go back and forth and to stop, pause, and reset when you're going to eat something or take a bite. I always to have people take a few deep breaths in and relax and shift to parasympathetic. So how can we use the HRV app? This is just a side note, but if we're using this to figure out our recovery and what we should do with workouts, could we use this information to find out other data as if we're too stressed out, or if we are, before we eat, if we can test our HRV before we eat so we have proper digestion? And I wonder if there's anything like that we can use for biohacking techniques.
The biohackers do everything. They do things I couldn't even have imagined. When we developed the product, we had no idea how people were going to use it. Some people keep it on 24 hours a day. And while that's a really good data point, it's a lot of information though. And that's why the morning reading is really your best reading of the day, because we want to see how well you've recovered overnight, because you recover when you sleep. So we want to see where your body is starting out first thing in the morning. So that morning session, even though it's fun to measure your HRV before you eat, it's interesting to see what happens to it after you eat. What you'll find is right after you eat, your sympathetic nervous system will peak, and then it'll go right back down. And with obese people, right after they eat, the sympathetic nervous system does not go up. It just stays flat. So there's so many fascinating things that we've been studying. And the important thing is to measure yourself in the morning every single day and to see how you're doing. And in fact, we have a type of session we call HRV for training. But anybody can use it. I use HRV for training. But what it does every morning, it will take your morning score, and then it will give you a graph of all of your morning scores, along with a trend line that will show you if you're above or below your trend. And if you drop below your trend by one day, we recommend an easy workout day. If it's 2 days in a row, we recommend a total rest day. And in fact, I have a picture of Ben Greenfield. So Ben measures his HRV every single day.
Does he still do that?
He still does that.
I get everything.
I get all the sessions. He loves his HRV, but this is what happened to him. Over a period of time, the red is his trend line that we created. So, here were his measurements up, and then he fell down a little bit. So we'd get a little concerned and say, hey, maybe a low exertion day. Then he goes back up, comes down, and here he's down 2 days in a row. And that would mean a total rest day. And then the next day his HRV was up, he recovered well, he had some really good time, goes down. But this is what you would see in the SweetBeat HRV app if you were using the HRV for training every single morning. And if you're not an athlete, that's okay. Because when I see that my HRV is down 2 days in a row, I know something's going on. I need to focus on my sleep. I need to focus on myself. Maybe it's my food. Sleep is number one, because that's when your body recovers. And it's been interesting because I'm continually testing and coding and all throughout the day. And I remember one day my HRV was down to, it was really low. It was like in single digits. And I said to the young engineer that was working with me on it, I said, oh my God, I must have broken something. My HRV has just plummeted. I felt wonderful. In fact, my brain was on fire. I felt incredible. I had energy and I felt super good. And I found out that I didn't break the code. My HRV was just coming in single digits. The next morning I woke up with the flu. So my immune system was in high gear at that moment. And that's what made me feel so stimulated. You're stimulated. And then, of course, in the morning, I crashed.
Well, that's why I think it's important to teach people that they don't necessarily need to just do this for exercise. They don't have to be an athlete to get this data, but they can make sure they're using it, use the they can use the app to figure out how their health is. Like heart rate training, I tell people just measuring your heart rate by itself, you can find out if it's lower or higher resting heart rate. But the HRV, I think, is so important as I focus on teaching people how chronic stress impacts the whole you, that this is a great app to use to track as you're looking on the screen as Ben's variances in his heart rate variability day to day, that you can really change the way you train, but also your daily activities of making sure, do you leave time to relax and go for a little walk, get some fresh air, get some me time, or meditate, or something just that you reset your system. So I think this is, people, I know the biohacker world really likes that data, but I think some people just need to try it for 30 days and see, all right, is what I'm doing helping? And I know a lot of people are doing fasting. And I was wondering what, is there any apps or lab tests that we can do to see, okay, how is this helping my stress? If I do fasting too much, is it causing stress? It'd be kind of fun to, thought of that just now, but how you can track if you're doing more longer fasting days versus intermittent fasting versus, the keto, low carb, high fat world versus people that eat the regular standard American diet. So it's kind of fun, all the different things I'm sure you can do or have seen people do with this HRV app.
So a couple years ago, I started seeing the athletes with what I call an inverted LF-HF ratio, where their HF was actually higher than their LF. So their parasympathetic nervous system was higher than their sympathetic nervous system. And this was a strange phenomenon. You rarely see that because you're always going to have LF higher than your HF, if not equal, a little more. And I was very interested in what was going on. And what I determined is these were people that were fasting or they were on ketogenic diets. So the actual ketogenic diet does change the nervous system. The parasympathetic goes into high gear, sympathetic goes a little lower. Now, with that being said, I can't tell you if that's a good thing or a bad thing, because there are times when you see your parasympathetic nervous system being very high and your sympathetic being very low. And what that means is your parasympathetic is in high gear and you're trying to recover.
Well, that's what we're talking about. Acute stress versus chronic stress is how much, I was say the Goldilocks effects, like how much fasting or how much is too much for you as an individual or too little.
I don't know if it's good or bad, but it's a very interesting data point and something we've been seeing now a lot because of the ketogenic diet and intermittent fasting.
I know you're in that Facebook group with me. You should post on here, try the Sweet Beat app and just test your HRV for 30 days and let's track your data. Because a lot of those people don't exercise. I find, all those different private group pages on keto and low carb and fasting, that a lot of them are not athletes, but they're doing it, try to lose weight and get healthy at a cellular level. But it'd be fun to, have people start doing this as well and to see, okay, what am I now? And then I'm changing my food plan and whatnot, instead of just testing blood sugar. It'd be interesting to see what the stress is on their body. Because if you're eating a high carb diet for so many years, it'd be interesting, what is your HRV based on that chronic stress you're putting on with your high sugar diet?
Yeah. And, everybody's different too. And that's why you need to learn about yourself. And that's the key to it. What do you respond to? Some people are going to do beautiful on a ketogenic diet. Some people may not. Other people, sleep is the most important thing. So everyone is different and everyone is going to have that something special that really works for them. And this is how you learn about yourself. So when you wake up and you see that your HRV is below your trend line or it's down or all the power levels are down, you ask yourself, what did I do? What did I do yesterday? Was it that second glass of wine? Alcohol is very bad for your nervous system. Sorry to say, we discovered that. We were heartbroken. But it will take your HRV way down. And we're not even talking about a lot, just a little, maybe 2 glasses of wine, something you don't even really feel. But the next day, you'll see it in your HRV. So find out what you respond to, both positively and negatively, and that's how you can optimize your personal performance. Exactly. Everyone's a unique individual. And so you learn about yourself.
I'm laughing because I say that every blog I write and every post in those group pages, like, yeah, people ask all these questions. Like, no one's the same. Everyone's so different. So what someone else did isn't going to be exactly for you. So just be patient, and you have to do something like this and self-experiment what worked, what didn't work, and get that biofeedback. So I appreciate that because I say the same thing.
Well, the athletes being so competitive will always ask me first thing, how's my HRV? Am I normal? Am I high? And you really can't compare yourself to somebody else. We have average ranges by age. Actually, as you get older, your HRV will just start to go down. So we have averages by age, but that's just a very broad range. You're going to be unique. You have to compare your HRV from the previous day. So it isn't good or bad. It will just show you a difference.
Let's kind of dive into your slides here. We're just running out of time already because I start asking you too many questions. But the type A athlete we're talking about, the competitive athlete, tracking their HRV, and those that want to improve their performance. And then the long run, we should be more concerned about our longevity, what's our health in the future. So what other information do you want to share today with how to maximize the use of your app, the SweetBeat Life?
Well, let's see. Let's just go to, this isn't a very fun page, but it sort of lays it out. We want to make sure that we are resting and recovering enough after we are training. I mean, it's your muscles, right? Training is very stressful. Exercise is one of the most stressful things you will ever do, and it breaks down your muscle fibers. So you actually weaken yourself when you train, but when you sleep and when you recover, those muscle fibers heal, and then more muscle fibers are created. This is where you get strong. It's not the working out part, it's the recovery part. So if you keep breaking a muscle down, breaking it, and you never give it time to recover, that's when you're going to be hurting yourself and hurting your performance. And we need to keep that in mind, that recovery is actually even more important than the training. And a lot of the standardized training programs have well-documented results in this area. In fact, if you go on to the NIH, I think there's about 35,000 research papers on HRV and training. So it's amazing what we've done. The autonomic nervous system is a great indicator of how well you've recovered. And heart rate variability is that window into the autonomic nervous system. So if you're an athlete, what you want to be doing is you want to be measuring first thing in the morning. You want to be breathing normally. No rhythmic breathing, because that will actually change your HRV. Just perform it in the same position at around the same time every day. And
I just was going to add in what you're saying earlier, is that overtraining and under recovery is so essential. It's such a big area for athletes, especially endurance athletes, because especially triathletes that you're doing 3 sports and filling that the rest of the day up with a real life and work schedule and family life activities, that I think that this is why it's so important. That recovery part is becoming more popular. And I know as the Ironman Hawaii this past year, there's a lot of people promoting recovery products and mattresses and just different products to improve that sleep and recovery. So I think you guys are way ahead of the time and working on that recovery portion for athletes' training schedule.
Yeah, and the older you get, the more you have to rest and recover. And people forget that. They'll be in their 30s and they think they can do exactly what they did when they were in their 20s and get the same results. You actually need more time. So the older you get, the more time you need to recover. And I don't think you can rest enough. When you think you've rested enough, do it 2 times, do twice as much. And then you'll probably be in good enough shape to continue to train and to actually build rather than break down.
Well, I think a lot of us forget that they're not 35, because I say I'm 35 for the last 12 years. So I think you think you're 35 still, but really in reality you're not. But mentally I am. So that's part of my problem, probably. I don't realize that. So what is on the app? Are there any special screens you want to share that how people can really read it, since we've got the screen, your slides to share so people visually can figure out how to use this data?
Let me pull up something from the App Store. Okay? And that will give you a very good idea.
So as she's pulling that up, I think it'd be great to look at when you're coaching. As a coach myself, I'm coaching people on the holistic method, and I'm coaching people the whole athlete program that we're working on nutrition, exercise, but also your sleep and your stress, your movement, mobility, because that's just as important as your exercise session is moving the rest of the day, mobility. And then I work on digestion and gut health, because the health of your microbiome is very important to your performance. And then hydration, making sure you're drinking enough water, because we're 60% water. Most people are so dehydrated because we're drinking coffee and other diuretic drinks throughout the day. And then the happiness and gratitude part, which plays into all those roles. So I think, looking at coaching people using HRV is such a great, what do you do, 3 minutes, or do you do 5 minutes in the morning?
You can get away with 3. You should be doing 5.
Yeah.
And on the monitor screen, you can set the default, but we just couldn't get our athletes to sit for more than 3 minutes in the morning.
Okay, but that's because you need it. Anything you hate doing, what does it mean? You need to do it. That's because we're so type A. I got to go. I've got other things to do. People just need work to do. That 5 minutes seems like an eternity, but if you can't sit and chill out for 5 minutes, we should probably see that as a red flag. And that's that priority.
So I've got the screen up here. Oh, one other thing that we recommend for increasing your HRV and your parasympathetic nervous system is getting outside, green exercise. Mm-hmm. Get outside, get into nature. There's something very, very special about it. The Japanese call it forest medicine. We don't really know what's going on. Get into nature, enjoy it, hear the sounds. Don't just go out there and try to train and block everything out. Sunglasses, earbuds. Enjoy. And do that every day. That really helps. Also, touching is critical because touching increases your oxytocin levels.
Touching other people or just touching things?
I would
touching
say
the wall. This is how
other people, your dog, hug your dog, kiss your kids, sit on the couch with your partner and make sure your legs are touching, hold hands more. This has a significant biological effect that people don't realize. And the emotional aspects are very important. When I used to Skype with my daughter when she was away at college, my HRV, I would watch it. Everything would just go up, the power levels, because of my happiness level.
Yeah.
So the emotional aspects are really important.
Well, that's why happiness is such an important element of the holistic method, because it goes with all the other parts, is that gratitude, joy, laughter, play, happiness. So it'd be fun to see, yes, your power levels, LF versus
everything goes up.
How it improves. So getting outside, the nature walks, getting the grounding, the earthing makes a difference too. So these are all things you're talking about that improve that vagal tone, the strength of your vagal nerve will help improve your HRV.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's your life force that you're increasing. As you see the power levels increase on your LF and HF, it's your life force. I can tell when someone's depressed. All I have to do is see a session and I'll know they're depressed. Their power level scores, they may be well balanced, but that doesn't really matter. Wow. They're just low. And when I know what my HRV is going to be in the morning before I even measure it, just by the way I feel emotionally and physically, I know what results I'm going to get. The better I feel emotionally and physically, the higher my power levels are in the LFHF.
So when you're coaching someone through nutritional therapy or the holistic method coaching I'm doing to help if their numbers are low and they're not athletes, they're just having issues, challenges, opportunities in life that's causing them to feel stressed and anxious and depressed, that if they measure this HRV and their scores low and it's not necessarily they need rest from their workouts. We just need to strengthen that vagal tone, that vagal nerve by doing some breathing exercise, getting out for nature walks, hugging, touching, and
Sleeping well.
Sleeping.
Sleeping well.
So
Eating
you can
well.
track that though and see if am I doing these different new lifestyle habits to bring more happiness and gratitude into my life? Is my HRV score improving by those different techniques?
Correct.
Yeah, that's great.
So here are some of our screens. I just went on the App Store and I got
this. Share them over there.
Am I not sharing?
You're on the slide still.
Oh,
you have to go back to that share screen.
Sorry about that.
Mm-hmm. One moment, please. So if I know people use different apps, so whatever you use, I think it's just important to understand how to maximize that use of the app and get that information, but actually do something with it. Because I know some people just test it, but they don't really, change anything based on that score. So I think the first step is testing your heart rate variability. Next step is applying that information to your life work. Schedule.
And I do offer private consultation for people, and athletes love it. Like usually before a big event, a month before, they want me to start tracking them and working with them to get them perfectly prepared for their event.
So let's look at the screens here, guys. If you're on the YouTube channel, The Whole Athlete, you can see these screenshots from what your app will show up on your phone.
That's right. A couple of them. Actually, there's so many. We don't have enough room in the App Store to show all our incredible screenshots. So we try to just show the ones that were the most important. So here is just a monitor screen. This is when you're measuring your HRV. You've got your HRV number and your heart rate number. This is an animated ECG. The time difference, though, between the RR intervals is accurate, but this is not a real ECG. But it is accurate to a degree for the distance. So you'll see the RRs come in, shorter and then longer, and that's the difference. History is wonderful because you have the history of all your sessions, and you can tap on any row and drill down into all the session summary screens. You can then hit the share button after the history when you're looking at the session summary, and you can email that data. And I send 4 different CSV files, which are the RRs. I have a file that's Kubios ready, RRs. I have a complete session summary of all the sessions you've ever done and all your HRV records. So you can send that to yourself and open it up in Excel or send it to your coach. So this is a wonderful way for people to communicate and analyze their data offline. HRV for training over time. What this is showing is somebody's, I was telling you about those HRV type sessions. Every morning they did this session, right? And you can see, God, they've got months and months worth. I also will show you a scatter plot of your session. And each one of these dots represents the RR interval with the LFHF. So in this circumstance, this RR interval, the LF was at 5,000 and the HF was probably at 2,500. And the green would mean you're balanced. The purple means that your HF is actually higher than your LF. That was the inverted that I talked about. And red displays that your LF was higher than HF. So, that was an interesting screen. Oh, here's our website. Sorry about that. So those are a couple of the screens. We have many, many more screens. We show you everything from all your summaries, your session summaries, to that individual session. The min-max, the geek screen is the screen that'll have all the numbers on it. People love that. It's just the raw data. I put that in because I needed it for debug when I was building the product. Everybody loved it so much. We made it an official screen. That was just a debug screen. So everyone can see their LFHF and RMSSD. And one thing to point out too, signal quality is very, very important. And that's the signal quality we're getting from the heart rate monitor. And on the monitor screen itself, you have a signal bar. You want to make sure that there are four dots full, similar to your Wi-Fi, right? You want to make sure you have the whole spectrum, because if I don't get good signal from the heart rate monitor, I have to throw those RRs out. And even though I use very advanced filtering algorithms, it will affect your result. It'll give you a normally higher positive HRV than you should have. So you always want to have good signal quality, and that means good contact with your skin. Always wet your heart rate monitor contacts. I use electrode gel because water just doesn't do it for me. I actually need electrode gel to get a good contact and consequently a good signal from my heart rate monitor.
That's great information. And I hope you guys are using this as athletes, or even if you're not competing or training for any long distance stuff. I think, as we said earlier, to get the information to work on your happiness scale, to work on your digestion, just healthy, happy life, you can do this type of biohack technique to measure your longevity and performance for daily life. I think it's not just for athletes. And I think the nutrition part and eating, knowing if you're eating the right foods for yourself, you can really experiment with that as well. So it's kind of fun, different information you can get. But I think we all need to stop and do 5 minutes of lying there. So if you're not a big meditator, this is as close as you can get, just lying there still and breathing
naturally. Yeah.
And just test it out. I think it's just so interesting to see where you are and find out, as you said, and I would say everyone is a unique bio individual and our numbers are all going to be different, but you have to find out what your normal is, where you are at, and meet your body where it's at.
Yep.
So how can we find any information on your website? I know there's a zillion blogs and so much stuff on there. So let's give everyone your links.
So the link, you're still on this page, right?
So what's the website? Sweet Beat HRV.
You can also go to Beat Healthy, which is our tagline, or SweetWaterHRV.com. So,
loading. So SweetWaterHRV.com. You guys can learn more. And
here's a picture of the screen. And under support, we have library, where we have an enormous amount of videos and podcasts and all the different documentation, everything we've done. Under apps, you can find supported heart rate monitors. And these are the monitors that we have tested, because not all heart rate monitors are the same. And a wrist-worn device will not do it. They use PPG technology, which is great for an average heart rate, but you can't get reliable RRs no matter what they tell you. And the only thing worse than no data is bad data. And I hate to see people, there are a lot of apps out there, they're using finger sensors and, wristbands, and you're just not getting accurate data. And that's dangerous.
A good question before we're out of time, but the ring people are wearing, and then there's like bracelets you're saying. So those are giving you, I know the ring gives you the HRV, but I always am curious if it's not measuring with the heart rate strap, how accurate, if it's at your wrist or on your finger, to measure your heart rate variability. Because it's by your pulse.
I can't tell. They'll always tell me, and I love my Oura ring. I used it because I was very interested in seeing what they were saying about sleep. Mm-hmm. And they're really smart guys and really a great company. But I would say, they say, we are so accurate. I say, okay.
Compare it.
Give me your data. Let me get my RRs, and then I can measure against a heart rate monitor, which is equivalent to a single lead ECG. I mean, heart rate monitors are incredibly accurate. And no. So all you have to do is ask somebody, well, give me the raw data. And when they don't,
you wonder.
Yeah.
So you can probably test against both and then test your HRV while you're doing and get your HRV on your Oura ring.
Sort of, kind of. They'll do it in the middle of the night for your HRV. I don't know what they're doing. I do know that the watch, the SDNN on the iWatch, is way off. I mean, because I've tried to do comparisons there. And it's sometimes off by like 50%, which is significant. A 50% difference is way too much. And so I try to measure with the heart rate monitor and perform a session on my iWatch, which I love also, but I give no credibility to the HRV numbers that are coming off the iWatch.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that great
and they won't give me their RRs either. So
that's fine. Well, if you guys want more information, for sure go to this website. So the HRV training guide on there, and their blog's always great. And you guys always have the research that you're showing what this actually is helping with and prove the numbers. So
and you can email me directly too.
Oh, yeah.
I answer all the questions.
And you're doing consultation as well. So if you really want to know specifically how to read your HRV on the SweetBeat app, you can talk to Jo Beth.
Great. Thank you, Debbie. It's been fun.
All right. Until next time, guys, measure HRV and let's see how you're doing. And if you do it each morning for your 5 minutes and keep it track, and let's share your results and see what we can do with our biohacking techniques of the holistic method to transform the whole you from inside out.
Take care.
Thanks for listening to the Whole Athlete Podcast. If you have any questions, feedback, or topic suggestions, let us know on Facebook or at wholeathletepodcast.com. You can help us continue and grow by leaving a review on iTunes. Thanks again, and see you next time.